Hey there, welcome back. I am Jess, and I am here to talk to you today about some of my favorite makes. You have seen the video where Kathy talks about her favorite sewing projects, what kind of got her started, and the things that really stick out in her mind as her favorite pieces. And now you're going to hear some of mine. I have been sewing since, I've probably been playing around with the sewing machine since I was very little, probably like 4. My mom would kind of like bring me into the sewing room and sit me on her lap. But it wasn't until I was about 8 that I really got serious about making some projects. I still wasn't fully doing the projects by myself. Definitely, my mom was just like over my shoulder, helping me every step of the way, making sure I steered the fabric just correct so that, my seam wasn't crooked. And she gave me a great sense of comfort by doing things like that. When it came time for me to really branch out on my own, I had already started sketching, and I would see things in fashion magazines, and I would see things maybe on TV. I remember really being so obsessed with making prom dresses. And at the time, I was in 8th grade, so we were not going to prom yet, but I was always the person who was game to be somebody's date. So I had a lot of friends who were upperclassmen. So some of my earliest sewing projects were these homecoming, semi-formal prom dresses. And believe me, they were amazing. I actually just unearthed I think I made this dress for semi-formal in 8th grade. So guys, we're taking you back to the early 2000s, okay? And the dress that I made was kind of like an open back, and it was a maxi dress with like a big slit up the side. And I made it out of this black fabric. It was a batik, so it was hand dyed, and it had these little like rust-colored fireflies, just really, really tiny little fireflies floating all around the dress. And let me tell you, I found that dress not so long ago, and I took it home to my 25-year-old roommate, and she was like, "Can I wear this out right now?" And she's like, "This is 20-some years old. Like, I can't believe that it still holds up." Aside from making it, like, it was just a really fun dress to make. But I remember that at 8th grade semi-formal, I got to dance with the guy I had a big crush on. So whenever I see that dress, I think of that moment. And as luck would have it, we're still friends today, me and the guy. So it's kind of a happy memory of beginning of a really special sort of friendship. In 7th grade, we had actually just moved back to this area. And so I was new in school. The only way I knew how to differentiate myself was by sewing. And I remember being really obsessed with this neon electric lime green polar fleece, okay? So imagine it is November, it is cold, and I have a design in my head. And we found this pattern, but I remember living in this green polar fleece skirt. I was so warm and toasty that entire winter because I had this skirt that was essentially a blanket. Some of the boys were like picking on me about it because it was such an obnoxious color, and what they call it, my blanket skirt, I think, which they were not wrong. And so haters be damned, I wore that thing and still have it. I'm definitely the kind of person that is just as comfortable in a dress going to a formal event as I am in like very basic jeans and a t-shirt. And my style and the things that I've made for myself really reflect that very diverse sort of collection of garments. And when I think about my favorite dresses that I've made, there's one in particular that I made to go to a friend's wedding, and my date sent me a photo of what his tie looked like. I think I was still studying at FIT. And so I had access to Mood Fabrics in New York. And so I just took this photo and I went to Mood, and I spent hours going up and down searching through all of, the fabric options that were there. And I found this one really beautiful cotton voile, which, if you're familiar with cotton voile, it's light, it's airy, it's drapey, it's sheer and pretty. And it had a print that was a really pretty sort of pen and ink floral. The cotton voile had this little pinstripe of silver metallic running through it. So it just gave it like this extra pizzazz. But what I did with this dress was I used a Berta pattern, and it's like the Berta magazine patterns where you like open it up and all the patterns are kind of mashed on top of each other, and you have to trace them out piece by piece and like put it together like a puzzle. I took that and I made the bodice for this dress, and I fit it perfectly to me. And then I draped a full circle skirt to go with it. I did something really pretty clever that I'm proud of myself and I still put on every single garment, and that is I made the hem a little bit shorter in the front and I made it 3 inches longer in the back, because I was like, I know I'm gonna be dancing at this party, and I wanna make sure that if I like do a dance move or bend over or something, I'm not gonna like flash the whole wedding party, right? Not the impression I wanted to make. It ended up being the most perfect dress, just like so comfortable, so easy to wear. And it was fancy because it has this really like flirty sort of full circle skirt. But because it was the cotton voile, it had this ease to it that I have made over and over and over again. I've made that dress when my goddaughter was getting baptized. I made a special dress using that same pattern. I have just taken this one pattern and just copied it a bazillion times. And I think that's 100% the beauty of sewing, is that once you find that one thing that just suits you and you've drafted it to fit perfectly, you make it time and time again, because it gives you a comfort to wear that garment. I have been heavier, I have been lighter, and that dress pattern still fits. And there is nothing more comforting than that too, is knowing that you can like rely on this trusty dress to like whatever your situation is, you can put it on, you can feel like $1,000,000. I have made dresses for every one of my friends who has gotten married. There are really specific themes. My good friend Eli got married 2 years ago, and he had this like Art Deco theme. And I made a dress out of this beautiful curry colored velour. And oh my gosh, that dress is so beautiful. And it looks like something out of the 1930s. And that's exactly what it was meant to do. When my friend Anuja got married, she was having an American wedding ceremony and a traditional Indian wedding ceremony. And so I had this beautiful fabric that my brother actually had brought back from India. I did a lot of research so that I could really make sure that I was paying homage to a culture that I really respect. And what I found out after, getting the fabric out and really looking at it and doing some research is that what was printed on, it had this beautiful elaborate border, the fabric I was using. And in my research, I found out that all of the motifs along this border of my fabric was actually it was a wedding ceremony. It was a wedding parade around the bottom of my dress. So I knew that was the perfect fabric to use for that garment. And when I was able to, show that to to my friend and to her family. They were all just so excited that that I had, taken so much effort to honor her culture. And actually my date at the time, I had made him a coordinating outfit that had pieces of my dress actually sewn into like the placket of the sleeves and the neck. And so, when we stood next to each other, we just coordinated so beautifully, which is something that a lot of couples do traditionally. So, paying homage to those cultures is just, it's really important to me to be able to do through dress. The stories of my dresses, my garments just in general, are probably, like the garment, whatever, but it's the story behind it that is really, really so important. For me, I look at a fabric, I look at an outfit, and I think, I instantly remember all of these really specific details: who I was with, where I was going, what happened along the way, what was the process actually to making that garment. That is probably the most special thing to me. And we say this a lot, your most memorable makes don't have to be the most complicated. Some of my favorite makes are not complicated at all. I have made dozens of little baby burp cloths for friends of mine who have had babies. And I make these little like pull-on pants. They are so easy to do, but those are some of my most memorable things that I've ever made, because it reminds me of a new chapter in, my life or my best friend's life. And that's so, so special. I want to talk to you about this really, really easy pair of pajama pants that I made. I think I was maybe teaching a class. I was still in high school. And these pajama pants were like really huge legs. They had like a tie waist, and they were super, super easy to make. And I remember I made them out of this batik fabric that we had at the shop. And the reason why these are a memorable make for me, it's almost like a combined sort of memory, because in my first semester at college, my best friend, Abigail, borrowed these pajama pants, and at the end of her trip, she looked at me as she's packing these pajama pants in her suitcase, and she's like, "I'm taking these. I love them." Like, they're not yours anymore. And I was just like, okay, you can have them. I can make another pair. And literally 10, maybe 12 years later, we were kind of like reminiscing about that trip and about how she stole my favorite pajama pants. And she goes, "Jessie, I had those until just a couple months ago." And I was like, "Get out of town." And she's like, "Yeah, I wore them until they were threadbare." She was like, "I had to throw them away because they were falling apart." But to know that she wore them, for 10, 12 years, to the point, and she loved them. Like, that, I think, is the most important part. She loved them so much that they were threadbare at the end, and like to the point of unrepairable. And she was like, "Oh, it pained me to get rid of them." But she said they were so, so loved. And every time I wore them, I thought about you. I have to say that the part of our enthusiasm about sewing and quilting is that it's just that. It's all about the story that's like stitched into the seams. This project, any project that you're doing, it's a snapshot of a place in time. And it's a place in time that you can revisit when you use that quilt or when you wear that garment. And I think that is so, so special. Seeing those things really takes you back. I hope that after watching this video and learning about some of my favorite makes and hearing some of my stories, you will be inspired even more to continue on your sewing and quilting, whatever your creative journey is. or you'll be inspired to start a creative journey. We also hope that you will like and subscribe to our videos, and you'll join us for more content, more stories, more how-tos. We would love to keep sharing our sewing stories with you. And I actually hope that you'll share some of your sewing stories below. So please get into the comments and share some of your favorite makes with us. Until next time, happy sewing.